There we go. How about I turn up that fader? You can hear me. Hello and welcome. You got me? All right. So, welcome to the Zoom Test Kitchen. I'm Jeff Widgren. We meet here every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern to dig into Zoom and surrounding technologies that support it. Today, we're going to be focusing on some results. David and myself, and maybe some others, have been working on building out their Stream Deck or companion, and we've been doing it on the latest 3.0 beta, and still, it has its moments of ups and downs. They're still definitely developing it, but we wanted to be good and ready for it as well. ZoomOSC module is really progressing along there and is actually pretty usable, but I have to, for instance, my vMix that I use to feed my Zoom meetings, I have to run off my iPad right now and call shortcuts and so forth because that module is broken or not repaired for the 3.0 version of Companion yet. So, needless to say, we're gonna have some fun with this. I know I I've spent a lot of time building out these pages. It's like I never feel, like totally settled on the layout, or I've redone the graphics, not drastically, but several times, just to try to get it as clean as I can. And I still have that one little messy section, but needless to say, that's what we're gonna do. And David is agreed. He's got his project as well to share his project, and not just the front end, but the back end. What's behind those buttons, and how is it that you find those things? How is it that you use them? How is it that you combine them, and so forth? So, I if I can, let me see if I can get to my Mac screen here. Is that my Mac screen? That is my Mac screen. And I want to bring that up. I hope it works. But if you watch my Mac screen, this is a page on my Stream Deck that represents group 2. So we have a kind of a built-in group now that they just developed, called, and that group will always have your hosts and co-hosts in it. So you never lose them. If you give yourself exposure to group 0 or host, and the name of the group is host, then you'll always be able to find your hosts, co-hosts, and those folks on the team. That one auto builds. You don't have to add them. You don't have to remove them. As a matter of fact, you can't, and they'll just always be there and be usable. Other than that, you can create groups of your own. I think it defaults to 2, group 1 and group 2. I've got 4 defined. I'm not using number 4 right now, but that enables you to add, whether it's panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, with those speakers in each of those panels. You could break it up that way. There's just a number of ways to do it. What I would invite 2 or 3 of you to do right now is David, Ray, and Kevin. If you would raise your digital hand and watch the screen, if it works, and of course it's not. But, oh man, cool. My wife just danced at the door and said she got the job, so that's pretty cool. Um, so I was looking for these triggers. They worked before the show, but they are not now, I guess. Anyways, what they're supposed to do, and I'll show you, how we write them, and we'll test it and see what failed there. But but it's on the more advanced side, but not really over anybody's head, is to be able to create a trigger. And let's say this first trigger says position 1, so gallery position 1, if their hand is raised, add that person to group number 2, and like automatically. Now, it wasn't working for me, and then I found if I removed this action or condition and re-added it, that it started working like a charm until, of course, the show starts. So anyways, but to read through it, it basically says, hey, the event is a condition coming true. And so here's the condition. And the condition says if the gallery position number 1's hand is raised, then do these actions. And this is to pre-select the user. So it's kind of like push the button and select them. So select position 1, and then add that selection to group number 2, and make that happen. So
Jeff, is it
you can
possible it
see,
didn't work because
unfortunately,
you're
it
spotlit?
didn't. That's group 2. But if I
Hey,
run this,
Jeff,
if I test them, yeah.
is it possible it didn't work because you're spotlighted right now? And so
I
gallery
don't know.
position 1 is technically you?
Well, my ISO machine is in gallery position. Well, that's true. Are you? Yeah, raise your hand again. Kevin, yeah, see, so Kevin is now in position 1, and you're in position 2, and Ray is in position 3. See, I made it there, but I didn't raise my hand, which is interesting.
I think it's
So
because you're spotlighted. So let's I
yeah,
just unspotlighted you.
let's see
Everyone
if
undo
that.
your hands and let's see.
Yeah, go ahead and take him down and raise him back up. No, still not kicking it into gear. Oh, David went into group 3. We'll dig into that. But from from the simpler things as far as just seeing who's in what position. Let's see if we can get this camera back up here on the this is the real Stream Deck. You can see my hand there in the whole bit. I have a camera back up behind me. But this page in particular, which is my page number 1, is representative of the gallery. And what that really means is that it's representative in the yellowish buttons, white yellow buttons. There's 18 buttons, right? There's 3 rows of 6. So up to 18 positions. And they're dynamic. I mean, as we know it, the gallery is dynamic. Kevin, if you'd raise your hand, well, let me find you real quick. You're in position 5 right now. So if you'll raise your digital hand, bingo. Not only on your Zoom gallery does Kevin end up in the top left, but on the Stream Deck, he ends up on the top left as well. So it's very dynamic, and it keeps up with, the changes as well. Some of them are yellow, and some of them are purplish. And those purplish ones, notice what it's reading there. It's not just displaying their name, it's also inserting a title up top that says no cam. And so if that was somebody you were considering selecting to spotlight, it's telling you right now that in purple and the additional title, there's no camera on that person. Their camera is turned off. And so with I have the second position there is my ISO machine. I don't have a camera on that, but I can turn on the video and it went away, right? And I'll turn it back off and it comes back. And so it's very dynamic that way in the sense of providing us what's called feedback. And so you can do things dynamically. And when you have feedback, you can, at that moment, it's like, is this condition true? I'm going to give feedback. You can change colors of the background, the foreground. You can change the text. So I'm inserting the no cam title plus their name. You can also change the alignment. You can show a PNG file, and you can change the alignment and location, if you will, kind of top, left, right, bottom, and so forth of the PNG and also the text. And so you can make some kind of noticeable differences if you want to have some indicators as well. You can also, so my gallery on my ISO machine, which is Mac 1, trying to get used to this iPad. That's what I'm looking at on my ISO machine with the ZoomISO client. It's 4 wide by almost 4 tall. But as I change this size, wow, it's really shrinking, and go down to 3, it'll turn in, it'll get to a multi-page state, if you will, and with that, when you start paging, it's not quite, it's really actually not doing on the Stream Deck what it used to do. And so I'll have to ask and get some clarity on that. But the point being is I have 18 buttons that represent the gallery. Most of us are displaying a minimum of 25 videos or 49, right? Depending on the size of your monitor and resolution. So how do you represent and get that lined up? I used to, and don't know if I'll be able to simulate it today. I would line up, I would size up my gallery window to match the columns and rows. So in my Stream Deck's case, I have 6 across and 3 down, and so I would size up my window to represent the same parameters there. So then when I page through the gallery and change, I don't have a multi-page predicament right now, but if I had a multi-page deal, then it would change. Don't think of gallery position as 1 through 49, and on page 2 it's 50, 51, 52, 50. It doesn't continue to count in this sense. If I had 49 buttons on a Stream Deck to represent the 49 video squares on page 1 of my Zoom gallery, when I went to page 2 on the gallery, it's still position 1 through 49 as far as companion is concerned. It's because even Zoom is only seeing 1 through 49, the second set of 1 through 49 positionally. And so it, unlike the participant IDs are order of arrival. When did you get in the meeting? But if there were 200 people, you would in fact have 49, 50, 51, and so forth, because that's literally their order of arrival. But gallery position is different in that sense. So it keeps up with the changes, and some of those changes are driven by the way that Zoom behaves with hands raised and so forth. Um, and it's not just a display, it's a selection as well. So if I took and selected Frank, I called you Frank, and I thought I better not do that on the air, and I just did it. It's Ray. As a matter of fact, I called him Frank Raylan this morning. I said, "Hello, Frank Raylan," and I twisted his name all up. I did it this morning on purpose, but
Frankly,
anyway,
Ray, I don't give a darn.
frankly, Ray, there you go. With that, is being able to select, and you can see that the selection says, hey, make the background yellow, and I added a PNG as well on the bottom left corner of just a green dot that lets me visually know that these individuals I've selected. Haven't done anything with them except they're in my selection set. And so if I if I took Kevin and Ray, and I went over here to my on stage button, you'll see that they will both get spotlit in addition to any existing spotlight that's there. So you can see that they're still selected on the Stream Deck. If I just wanted to add them to have some added commentary, I can just press the off stage and they go away and my original spotlight comes back the way it was. Notice that I'm going to do it again, Frank, Ray, and Kevin on stage. Notice that they're not only spotlit, but they're also unmuted as well. And there's a couple of things contributing to this. One, I've said unmute them. Two, I've pre-planned like a long time ago, not for today, but I've always had Zoom ask, will you allow the host to unmute you? And if you say yes to that, then it really makes this job a lot easier because it will simply spotlight, unmute, and away you go. If you don't plan for that and don't ask, then and you exercise I think what are best practices is you don't allow people to unmute themselves, then that same exercise, they both would have gotten pop-up requests to unmute, and then they'd have to respond and be good to go. I think those are kind of the contributing factors to that. So I will off stage them. It will remute them. It'll put them back. Do me a favor, Kevin and Ray. Raise your digital hand. You'll end up in the first two. They just got this fixed, by the way. The hands didn't used to follow the names. And literally it just fixed, I think, yesterday or the day before on one of their updates. So that's good news. So we've got two people that, have their hands raised. And so I'm going to select them and I'm going to on stage them. And they're unmuted. They're spotlit. My own personal practice is I leave their hands raised. I know it's a graphical ad that some people don't like, but if something goes wrong and I need to grab my mouse and fix it and get Ray back because for some reason he dropped, if you've got 800 people in the meeting, you're not finding Ray very quickly if you lower their hand now. But if you have an issue and a video goes away or a spotlight drops or whatnot, and you have to find him, guess where he is? He's in the top left position, because the hand is still raised. So then when I off stage them, they get muted, they get unspotlit, and their hands get lowered all in one press of the button as well. So it's just the flexibility and, kind of thinking about your workflow for the event that you're going to be managing tomorrow, for instance. So any questions up to this point? David?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I love the idea of having the little indicator that says the camera is off. And what I see in when I'm trying to create that feedback is the option I have is camera on, camera live. Is that the one that you're using?
That's the one. Yeah,
but it's showing up even when the camera's off.
It's showing. What do you mean it's showing up?
So here's my thing, right? So my ISO machine, my camera is not on. I put a little ping, that little camera at the bottom left there, and I set it up so that index position 1, camera live, but it's showing up as if it's live. Right?
So, one, you're pointing to, that's position. Yeah, isn't your very top left corner position 1, not your second position?
No, this is a position.
Is that active speaker?
That's active speaker, right?
Okay, yeah, I saw it change. Okay, so gallery position 1, and that's the button
list position. I'm in my list view right now.
Okay, gotcha.
So I chose participant index-based feedback. Is that what you chose? Index
Well,
1.
not because it's, I
You
mean,
did it for
I
gallery?
could, but I'm doing it in gallery.
All
I
right,
haven't
so let's,
applied to all of them.
all right, so let's do for gallery. So here I am in gallery, gallery position 1. I'm going to add a feedback. I'm going to go down here, add feedback, and I want gallery-based feedback, right?
Yeah, you're in gallery.
Or is
Yeah,
it,
gallery-based feedback.
let me just make sure it's not participant. No, it's gallery-based feedback. Okay. Then I'm going to choose a ping and gallery position 1.
And
Here's
and
my camera off. There it is. And now my options are mic live, hand raised, camera live, or active speaker. So now I chose it camera live, but you can see it's almost opposite. It's not, if I were to turn my camera off,
let me
it shows up.
Go remind myself real quickly. Yeah, because they're it's a camera live. It's like, do this, so show your PNG file if the camera's live. And so
okay.
so really what you want to do is you want to scroll up top to the default graphic, that browse button in the top right. That's the default. Assume that their camera's not on by just going, hey, this is the default camera off graphic. Then the feedback piece is, if their camera's on, override it with this graphic instead.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So let's go back and just drill through this a little bit. So it's filling up a little bit. You can see the camera, real quickly now. The yellow buttons are those with their cameras on, and the pink buttons are those with their cameras off. I mean, it's just super quick and easy to see, and there's some text to assist it as well. But it just gives you that status, because gallery view, if it's driven by, if the next speaker on air on stage is driven by digital hand raises, they just scoot towards the top left, as one comes and goes and so forth. So that's easy enough. So if it were Jeff Widgren on the top left corner is ready to speak, he's ready to speak. Like, his camera's on, I can tell, he's good to go. Select him and spotlight him. But the next one is not, and it's the Jeff ISO machine. And so I'm going to go to my Mac screen 1. That's my ISO desktop. And I'm going to, on my Stream Deck, I'm going to select that purple one that said my camera's off. I'm going to go to the actions page, and I'm going to click on request video on. And I think it turned it on. I wasn't expected to turn it on. It actually turned it on instead of just sending the request, because I've got the power to do that, because that's we're both hosts and co-hosts, I think, is the difference on that one. By the way, I want to show you this, what just happened. It drives me nuts that I haven't fixed it yet. My Stream Deck went dark, and I removed the page up, page down buttons, because I hated burning 3 buttons just to move around the Stream Deck, up, down, and the page number. And so I've been, as I build out a page, I just put an up and a down button, and really kind of don't even want to use that, but it does come in handy. But when you end up on a black page and you don't have a page up or page down button, how do you get out of it? And I'm just going to show you how I get out of it by showing you my companion page. Go to the Surface, that's the Stream Deck, go to settings, move the starting page slider up and back down, and you'll be back. And it'll get you back to a page that's usable. you know, eventually it's like, it wasn't high priority for me is to get those, you know, default 2 buttons put in place and so forth. But wanted to show you that as I was experiencing it. All right. Any other kind of questions up to this point on this particular page? So
You have a
we went
couple of
over what
questions.
the,
Kevin and Tom have their hands up.
yeah. Sorry about that, Kevin. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin, and welcome, Kevin. Good to see you. Oh, I have you guys locked down. My apologies. I don't usually do that through the meeting, but I forgot to turn it back on. There
All
you go.
good. Good to see everyone. So, and actually, I guess before I ask my question, I just wanted to mention I was unfortunately part of the layoffs that occurred. So if you're on LinkedIn, reach out and find me. Let's connect, and you know, we'll see if there's any opportunities that we can share in or whatever. But I'm always looking for new opportunities. So now more than ever, right?
Yeah.
But I will be
absolutely.
finishing out the month. I do technically still work for Zoom. I have an extension because I have some client obligations and that sort of thing. But it's good to see everyone and talk, regardless of that sad news. So my question was, I saw very briefly on your screen, I couldn't tell if it was in Companion or like whatever software you're using to make icons, but it said request co-host, and I didn't know of a native functionality that existed where you could do that. Is that something that's been introduced and I just missed, or is that like something else that you're doing?
Request co-host?
Yeah.
I don't think so. That doesn't sound familiar to me. So let's see what you actually saw. Get rid of that and just page through.
I don't believe it was on the Stream Deck. I didn't see it in this camera mode anyway. It was definitely window capture of software.
I mean, there's this page says request video. There's a request video on that. There's that. I mean, there's nothing on my companion page that would be different because it's responsible for what we're seeing on the Stream Deck.
Very well.
But there is no. I am not sure what or where you saw there. I mean, I immediately go, well, it had to have been a mistaken C because there is no request co-host. You know,
That's what I was thinking. Right?
You're correct in your want to dig deeper on seeing that, but
Sure. So I'll if I see it again, I'll screen cap it. And
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, Tom, welcome, and what you got?
Yeah, I hold space for some large academic groups that do academic style question and answer kinds of sessions. We might have 300 online and may have 25 or 30 with raised hands.
Sure.
How does the setup that you're showing today deal with that sort of overflow on overflow situation? And any ideas in like picking those guys faster? Because we're always behind.
Well, are you picking one at a time? I mean, it's like, okay, you're up. Okay, Tom. Okay, Jim. You know, I mean, are you just going one at a time?
It's usually that there is one person who's running the event and they'll call on a person. And so we got to add the person in quick. Mm-hmm. We tend to leave the person there. They finish their conversation. The person calls on the next person. We got to get them up on the stage and getting that as fast as possible when there's like 25, 30, even 50 people.
Yeah. So it's really a combination. So we've got a snapshot of 18 on the Stream Deck, right?
Yep.
That's what makes it functional. Zoom represents it as well, right? And they manage the movement. The Stream Deck or companions just reacting to Zoom's management. And so when Zoom gets a raised hand, up to the top left corner it goes. Then the next slot, then the next slot, then the next slot. So, you know, as you know, take this well, just I mean, we can't mimic the numbers right now, but everybody with their cameras on, I see 4 of you. Go ahead and raise your digital hand. Let's populate those first 4 positions. Okay, and so you can see what are we streaming? Can you see my stream deck still on my video feed? So with that, we've got, the first 4 buttons. Those could be 40 buttons. That could be 400. We just don't see them all yet, right?
Right.
But when you take one, if I take David and I select David and say, you're on stage, go David, and then he's finished and I offstage him, now he's gone, like, and everybody else shuffles up and shuffles up and shuffles up as
Yeah,
they come and go.
we're not taking them in order.
It doesn't matter if you don't take them in order. So right now it's Ray, Tom, and Andre. I'm
Yeah.
going to take Tom. I'm going to bring you up, and then I'm going to take you off stage. Now it's Ray and Andre, and Andre is the one who shuffled up because your space became available. Oh, you muted. You got muted when I took you off stage. Sorry.
It's okay. The issue is the faculty person's looking at Zoom. They'll randomly pick someone with raised hand, and sometimes actually folks without raised hands.
Sure.
And that's a real that's its own nightmare. But for the folks raised hands, I could have 25, 30 of them. How do I get off of this screen to the next screen to add them with the faculty person? Because the faculty person is held there the entire time.
So if I spotlight me, where am I there? If I spotlight myself, I don't know if that actually worked. Andre is actually spotlit, but he's not, no camera. So let me go back here to me. Now, with goodness sakes, I think I've messed myself up. Okay, I wanted to show the gallery page and get back to the gallery page, and so I'll spotlight that so you can see, you've got, select, on stage, off stage, and so forth. But there's also on the top right of this layout is next page, previous page. And so you can next page and previous. Now, the next page and previous page of the gallery is actually paging your ISO client's gallery view. And that's why earlier I was trying to get to the point of, here's my ISO screen. If we had more people, this would display up to 49, right?
Yeah.
And but my Stream Deck doesn't have that capability of 49. But if I say next page, it's going to go to the next 49.
Yeah.
And you're going, so we're missing some. That's why it's important to take, if you have that 49 set, but your Stream Deck is only capable, let's say if it was this layout, of 18,
Right.
that's why it's important to resize your gallery, literally, to match your Stream Deck layout. So now your gallery is displaying the same number as your Stream Deck. So now when you gallery page next and previous, you're literally paging 18 buttons at a time. And
I see.
Then you don't miss anybody.
Okay, that was certainly one of my questions. And the other is, love the layout that you've got. Is there a method with Stream Deck to share the layouts that people are using? Is there like a file transfer format for Stream Deck layouts?
I'm not telling. No, of course there is. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure David does exactly what I do right now. We're developing this on their beta platform, and we both have had the experiences of some investment of our time and effort like disappearing. And so we're there's not a save button, but there's an export button, and it
Uh-huh.
literally just exports it down to the downloads folder. And so, we'll make a certain amount of investment, export it out, do some more, export it out. So there's just always something to roll back on. And so that export file literally just can be sent to somebody, and you can import it,
Import it
and
into that
you're good to
Stream Deck.
go. Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually, that experience has gotten a bit richer now in this 3.0 version than it was previously. So, I mean, the images carry with it on both versions, but triggers can move. You can import just triggers or just the variables, and I mean, you have some selections as well when you're bringing in projects. So it's gotten stronger, which is great. But yeah, they're very shareable. I was on a rehearsal today with some musicians, and one of the musicians is extremely technically talented, Trevor, who has done tons with the Stream Deck and Isadora and so forth, for their musical performances. And so he usually owns the templates for the Stream Deck, the companion templates for that. But I've been getting involved in technically running their show while they perform. So this morning, for the first time, I actually had installed what's called Companion Satellite, and it's just remote. It's like I have nothing here other than an external Stream Deck and Companion Satellite
Oh,
software. I established a VPN to his location and put in the IP address in my satellite version, the IP address to
of
his companion
his.
machine, and bingo, my Stream Deck just populated with every bit of his work. There's no way for me to save it, keep it. But if there were 6 of us, I was doing the spotlighting, they were doing the audio, they were, different people. You could have 6 satellite connections come in to his work, and everybody just does their part of the job. And it's fantastic. Instead of him having to export it, send it to 6 people, everybody can edit it at that point. There's, kind of no master, so it's really quite cool. So that's another way to have helpers work off of the companion server, really consider the master the companion server, and then these are just satellites, if you will.
Cool. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah, you bet. So let's go back. I'm having a terrible time switching smoothly today. I apologize, just because this is altogether different for me, but I'll live through it. I'll live through it for sure. All right, so this is the companion page. So I do, before I leave this page, I want to talk about the design, and that is let's go top left. There's my up down button without the page number burning a button in between, so I took that out. On the bottom left, across the page, all my pages, I have the on stage and the off stage button. And so no matter what page you're on, almost every page on here, you can select people. And so I figure it's the most popular thing to do is on stage them and off stage them. So I put it on every page. Across the bottom, gallery is my navigation, arrival page, and that I call arrival order. That's the participant ID. It's your arrival order into the meeting. That will be when you see top left and across to the next row and across to the next row and across. That's literally the order in which you arrived in the meeting, and that's not going to change. And so that's my arrival order. So gallery, arrival. Then I have group management. and I gave myself access to my 3 groups. Like the host group that I talked about behind the scenes is like group 0, but it's not manageable. It's self-building, self-maintaining, and so we don't have to really worry about that, although we can reference it as far as that goes. But on group 1, I have a group 1 add, add somebody or people to group one, remove them from group one, select group one. So if I already have membership of group one, I can just select the whole group and go on stage them if I want. And then I can reset as well. It's hard to see the numbers, but I can't tilt this very easily here. Maybe a little. I know it's just the curve of these plastic buttons that's not letting my camera see it so well. If I change, let's see, to the Mac screen 2, we can get a little better view there on the, so you can see these small numbers. So I put in the bottom right corner of each, the select and the reset, the number of members that are in that group right now. And it's just a small indication for me. I can tell my trigger's working actually because I haven't added anybody manually to groups, but yet group 3 now has 5 members. And but if I wanted to reset that, I can simply click on reset. I'll click on test action, and it removes them all from being members of that group. That resets that number. If I were to click on the add button and test that button, should be able to, yeah. See, it says added to group 3, just little pop-up statuses, added to group, removed from group. So it's just a pop-up status. And then this button over here that says clear is if I have several people selected. I just did 3 or 4 there. Yeah, you can see that the number there is, there's 4 selected attendees. But this is primarily the group management page. So if I have 4 individuals that are selected. You can't see them right now, but if I were to page back, and I think they came from the participants page, you can see those are the 4, my ISO, myself, David, and David. And if I then desired to make those 4 individuals members of group 3, then I can click on group 3. It looks cumbersome right now because I'm doing it in the build module versus the Stream Deck itself. But I can test that button, and now you can see there's 4 members of group 3. So now instead of me having to manage the show by going click, 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 click on 4 people, now I can just select group 3. I'll act like I'm pressing it there. And when I do that, then I can click on stage, and it should, oh, something cleared. I'll have to see what went up there because those 4 were there a second ago, went away. Maybe I pressed the wrong one. Let's see. Select 1. That should, yeah, there's something I haven't finished here because when I click on that select, it should, yeah, it's actually clearing it. Like I just saw it do it. The result of clicking on either group 1's select or 2 select or 3 select, if there's numbers in there, should populate on the right side, the selected attendees number. So if there's 3 members in group 2 and I hit the select button, the selected attendees should go from 0 to 3 because it selected all 3 of them at one push of a button, and then you can go. So then my hot button, so my bottom row is always navigation. And if I jump back to my live, and so I can go, from gallery, the arrival order to the meeting, that group management page. Here's the hosts group. This one's kind of self-maintaining. You can see ISO, Jeff Widgren, David Paskin, and Ray are all either host or co-host, and that self-populates and manages itself. They're still completely actable, if you will. Select them, spotlight them, select them, mute them, unmute them, and so forth. But that group's always there. So then group 1, if I had anybody there, group 2, if I had anybody there, and get this, when I saw this, maybe even David, when you saw this, the new companion, instead of having the latch check mark, it's now been removed, and it's steps. It's step 1 with a press release, step 2 with a press release, step 3 with a press release. I'm like, I don't know what I could ever imagine using a step 2 for, but you do use a step 2 if you want to emulate latch. That's the only way you can do it. In this case, I actually have 3 groups, but I didn't have another button to get to group 3. So I know personally, although I haven't displayed it, if I press group 2 again, it'll take me to group 3. And if I press it again, it'll take me back to 2. So this one is actually a self-toggling button from group 2 to group 3. Group 2, it says group 3, it says group 2, and so I actually found a good reason to have that extra, step methodology that they've built into the new companion, which I think is great. So with that, it's, you think gallery order. Let's take it to, in my experience of the real world anyways, you know who your speakers are. You've asked them to show up, 30 minutes prior to going live. And so my ideal, if I can get these triggers to become dependable, is to just have them show up in the meeting. And when they show up in the meeting, now Tamara and I don't think Tamara was here. Yeah, she's here. She's just not on camera. We were working on a trigger that when you arrived, it automatically selected you and put you in a group, and selected you and put you in a group. My workflow would be have these speakers come in 30 minutes early. They're all there, and all I have to do is say, hey, everybody, will you raise your digital hand? And boom, the trigger senses those positions that have their hands raised. It selects them and adds them to a defined group and lowers their hand. And so they raise their hand, boom, it lowers it. Imagine that. Imagine if you don't want anybody in your meeting to a reasonable size of people not to raise their hands until it's time to raise your hand. You can do that now. A year ago or so, Andy Carluccio showed us how, one of the things that would be cool and like Isadora is that when a hand got raised, you do it, or when it got an unmuted mic, mute it. Now that was because we couldn't do it in Companion. Now we can do it in Companion with triggers, so we can sense things that happen and we can respond to a certain degree. I mean, there's some actions that are exposed and events that are exposed that we can tap into, but it's quite cool. So here's my workflow. People show up, the speakers show up, I select. I go to group management and I say, add them to group 2. Now it says I've got 3 that are in there. If I go to group 2, you can see that all 3 have been added. And if I wanted to undo that, the remove is the one that's not quite right yet, huh, David? But the idea would be able to select those 1 or more and remove them individually. Right now, they're working on fixing it, but right now I would have to go in and reset the whole group, because right now the module is only letting us literally type their name and say who to remove from a group. It's not even consistent with the way they've put the rest of the module together. So the bottom is my navigation. and it's on every single page. Every single page I go to, that navigation is there, and the page that you're on is highlighted in white. And then everything is followed with, you have 3 people selected here, and everything's followed with the ideal of hitting the actions button. That's like probably going to be the hottest button. Select, 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 hit actions. When you get to actions, what do you want to do? And the big square you can see are these 9 selected buttons. That is, these are actions you can take on selected people, right? And so you have 1 or more people selected. These are the things you can do. You can admit them from the waiting room. You can send them to the waiting room. You can eject them from the meeting. You can mute them, unmute them, pin them, and request their video on, make them a co-host, and lower their hands. You can do that on one-to-many. I think there's right now an exception on pinning, where you're trying to get some clarity and functionality, better functionality there. But as far as I know, make co-host, lower hands, video on, mute, waiting room, and I haven't tested the eject yet, but those are all seemingly functional. The ones to the right of that are more global. Lower all hands, mute everybody, mute all. Mute all except is the one that is there, and we're waiting for that to get finished and become completely functional. And then mute all is very global. It's just mute everybody, and they still haven't gotten clarity on that. Mute all, I think. Oh, let's try it. I'm going to hit mute all. I don't think I'll get muted, but the question is, what we don't know, David, is will the co-hosts be accepted?
No, you want to do mute all except, not mute all.
No, I want mute all, because it's just a whack. Because I know it'll ignore host, but I don't know if it'll ignore co-host.
Right, but the
Mute
question
all
is,
except would be like the ones who are currently selected. Like imagine being able to say click, 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 which might be your panel, but they're not co-hosts, but your panelists. And you can say mute everybody except your panelists, and they're currently selected. I'd like to see it that way.
Yeah, let's try mute all except also. Let's try both.
Yeah. So I'll do the glow. So this is the old one for sure. Let's see. Andre's unmuted. Hasbeck's unmuted. Jeff and Ray. Okay. At a glance. So I've got some non-co-hosts and some hosts unmuted.
If you're muted.
You're muted also. Yeah, mute all mutes everyone. The question is, mute all except. Who does that leave unmuted? That's what we don't know yet.
So that was interesting, because you know who didn't get muted? Jeff ISO. And Jeff ISO is not the host. So what it's doing is it's not mute. ZoomISO is not muting itself, even if it's a co-host. So that was interesting. All co-hosts got muted. The host got muted, but the one co-host who didn't was the ISO machine itself. So that's the first time I've seen its behavior, which is at least reportable at this point, right? Let me try mute all. If a couple of you want to unmute again, that's fine. I don't know what I've got tied. I have to go see what I've got programmed behind that button real quick. Oops.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing to configure on the mute all except button.
Yeah, I'll make sure that's mute all except. Yeah, mute all. I mean, it's there, and it's one of those nothing to configure. So what was its behavior? So I've got like your ISO client, David, doesn't have a mic on it. So but you're a co-host on your other account. If you'll unmute that one, Ray is unmuted. and then somebody else. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Tom. Andre. All right, I'm going to do this one more time.
So Tom is not a co-host. We
Correct.
are
Yeah,
co-hosts.
Tom and Andre are not co-hosts, and they're unmuted. And then we've got all of our co-hosts.
So we should test this, and then we should test this scenario that you laid out before, which is what about if it's about accept selected people?
Does
So then we
it?
should try that afterward.
Yeah.
So my mic is still live.
Mine is
It's
live.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's not.
So try
really-
selected.
nothing
try,
happened.
try to select a few people and see if that's what it is.
Go ahead and select me and maybe a co-host and then another co-host.
Let's see, Andre and Ray. I'll select those two,
Pick me, please.
and I'll do mute all except. Yeah, I'm not seeing any change. I'm not seeing any functionality behind that button right now.
Yeah, I'm the
I-
least powerful here, and I was not muted at all.
Yeah.
I believe this function isn't ready yet because in the former times it was like mute all except, and then you could fill in me or a special name or whatever.
Yeah.
I think this functionality is missing right now.
Yeah. So there's a there's a common representation in their module these days where you see this you have this multifunctional action called, this one's called pen, and it says the user, you can type in a username or leave it blank if you plan on using it against multiple selected individuals, and that's the way they represent it. You function when it's available that way. And right now the mute all except is, I know it's in GitHub, and we'll talk about GitHub towards the end, of like where you can submit, you can submit questions, you can submit requests for features, you can submit what you might think is a bug, and they do a really good job of staying on top of it and responding. So that's my layout in particular. Now I will point out.
Pete has a
real quick.
question. Jeff, Pete has a question.
Pete, hit me.
Hi there. Okay, so the question I have, if someone is, how it reacts if someone's camera's not ready or mic's not ready. I like that. Well, if you put that person on stage whose camera or mic is not ready, will it still put them on the stage?
No, Zoom in
mic it will.
general, the mic it will, but I mean, so if you have an unmute, then it'll still unmute them or send a request to unmute them. But if they don't have their camera on, it has nothing to spotlight, so it won't spotlight. You can
Okay.
still use your button and
Yeah.
know that it's going to unmute them. But it's not going to cause an error because they didn't have a camera. But that's why, I have those color codes that said, it's purple and it says no cam. I want to hit and send a request to get your camera on, right? And
Okay.
and the fact of the matter is, with focus mode on, you can now, we used to be able to tell panelists in webinar, hey, leave your cameras on. No one sees you until we spotlight you, right? Until we put you on stage. We can tell people that in a meeting now as well. As long as you're running in focus mode in a meeting, the audience isn't going to see you. I will, but not the audience until I spotlight you. But you have to let them know that. Otherwise, that's the reason they're turning their camera off, is because they're camera shy and they don't want to see people, have people see them scratching their head or whatever. Is let them know the audience won't see them, but you have to be in focus mode managing spotlights, and but that will help you in the end when you're switching it, because you'll know their camera's on, you'll know they're at their desk, right, ready to go, and so it all helps. All right. I wanted to explain one last piece of this. And that is, if you'll spotlight me, David, is from no matter where I decide I'm ready to take action on who I've selected, so I've selected 2 there. If it's from this page, I go, hey, I'm ready to take action on them. I hit the action button. If it's if it's on the arrival page, then maybe I select somebody else and then I go to actions. But that's where the actions button is always in the bottom right corner. And the actions page, its return button, it always knows where you came from. And so it returns you very quickly to where you came from. So I'm on the gallery page, actions, hit return. I'm back on gallery page. I'm on the arrival page, actions. I hit return. It goes back to the arrival page. Same thing with group management. If I wanted to select the group and go to actions to do something, when I return, it returns me to the management page. And so it always knows. The question is how does it know? I only wanted to burn one button to go and come back, right? But that button on the destination, the actions page, needs to know, well, where'd you come from? And so when you're on a page, let's say the gallery page, when you press the actions button, it doesn't just go to the actions page. It sets a value to a custom variable that says, I'm page number 1. Now go to the actions page. Now, when you're on the actions page, the return returns where? To the value of that custom variable, page 1. And the same thing with, any other pages. When you're on page, this is page 2, I hit actions, it sets the value of that custom variable to number 2, and then goes to actions. And now the return returns to page 2.
Can you walk through setting that up, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll dig into that. So let me get to my Mac screen on that. So on the I keep clicking on my Zoom window of this page versus my companion window, which is over here. So
And Jeff, one question.
Yep.
One quick question: is this available in version 2 as well, or is this something in Companion 3?
I believe I could take advantage of how I've implemented this jump to and back in 2.4.1, 2.4.1, because it does support custom variables, and I've made use of what I'll show you here of TCP UDP, and I'm sending a TCP command, and I'm pretty positive that was all there as well. So I think it's quite doable.
Smith has a question.
Yeah, no,
Hey.
mine was the same as Andres.
Okay.
All right.
Everything you're showing us is in
This is all
3.0
right
beta.
now. Yeah, and they don't get along. I mean, if you open your profile from 2.4.1 in 3, it's not going to work, and vice versa. So I haven't actually tried to open a 3.0 to 2.4.1, but I know it won't work because it's just so different. It's a major rewrite. There's no question, but it's really good. I mean, I think it's really worth the pain everybody's going through right now because the results are phenomenal. All right, so the actions button, which is the same on every single page, what it does is at first, so I create a custom variable. So I'm referencing a custom variable. Well, where you have to start with that is you have to go to variables. And when you go to variables, you go to custom variables so that you can create your own. And with that, I created one. So the creation is at the bottom. So you can type in the name of the variable that you want to create and you click add. Once you have that variable, then this is how you reference it. That's the name of the variable. So anytime you want to reference that variable, just like the OSC variables, that's how you reference it and call its value, if you will. So it says that the current value is 2. And that would be because I did it from page 2. I'm going to, on my physical stream deck, I'm going to be on page 1 and hit the actions page. And you'll see that the value of that variable just changed to a number 1. I'm going to go to page 3 on my stream deck and go to the actions page. And you'll see that its value is now 3. And so you can see that it's changing every time I do something on my stream deck for that actions button. So that's where the value is setting. This is the current value. If it needs to be a persistent value, there's a checkbox for that. And you can just set it and tell it it's persistent, which means it's not ever. So like my actions page is my actions page is my actions page, right? It's the same page. And so I set it to page number 8 and I said it's persistent. So there's nothing that's going to change it at that. If it's meant to be changed, though, then you want to take the persistence off of it. All right, so that's how you create a variable, and then when you're on a button and you want to do it, it's an internal call. And so if you were to create an action, if I were to create a new action, this is really worth spending just a touch of time on. Like if you don't know, you know, where is this stuff? It's all new. It's like, oh, I thought we were just working with ZoomOSC. And going, well, you're also working with Companion, and Companion has its own variables, which helps us, and those are prefixed with internal. But how do you find them? And I'll say, you know, click on the browse button and just if you have an idea of what you're trying to do, then just type the word, you know, VARIA, like varia or variable, spell it out. And any module that makes use of that, none of them do except the companion module. And it shows you everything that has the word variable in it. And so you just have to read through these and and take a look. This one is the one that we use, custom variable set the value. And so you add that, and that's how you end up with this, you know, custom variable set value. The custom variable, all the variables that are available inside of Companion. So these are all the custom variables available. And you can find it and select it. Mine in particular is that go to page variable. I just clicked on it and it didn't select that one. What I'm seeing on screen is not what's on the real screen. And so away we go. I say, hey, I'm pushing the actions button from page 1. So I say, set the value to that variable to the value of number 1. Then I want to jump to the actions page. This is just a touch of a stretch of kind of the norm, if you will. This in itself, this is it's called a TCP UDP command. It's just sending a packet, either TCP or UDP. And the big difference between those are both protocols, TCP and UDP. TCP is a handshake protocol. It says, hey, I'm gonna kind of knock on your door and make sure you're home first before I deliver you the packet of data. UDP is more of a message in the bottle. You're riding down the street on your bicycle and you throw the bottle with a message to the front door and it gets as close and you hope somebody finds it and opens it and reads it. I mean, that's the difference. UDP is faster because it doesn't have to wait for a handshake. TCP is more reliable but slower because it has to involve a handshake and confirmation. So those are the big differences. The message in our case is going to get through either way. So, but it's a different module. So the first thing you have to do is you go to connections and you have to add that module. And if it's not there, you have to find it. And go to TCP, you can find it. add the generic TCP UDP request. And when you do, then it'll be listed. And then the only thing you have to configure there is I'll show you this port number, the IP address of your ISO machine, ZoomOSC machine, put that in. And then this port number, I think it initializes it empty, but you find the answer to that under the settings right here. Because I'm sending it TCP, you have to make sure TCP is enabled and then grab the port number. The port number here is the port number you put under the config and pop that in there. So now it knows the IP address and a port number. And I'll add just a touch. What's the difference between, I mean, what does an IP address do for you? And what the heck is a port number and why do we need it? And I'll liken it, I'll liken it to this. You can have a courier get to my house, to the front door with my IP address. But if you don't tell him my name, he'll have no idea who to ask for when the door opens. And so there would be nobody to receive it. And the same thing, an IP address will get you to the computer on that network. But then what? Because you're there with a packet of data for an application that wants it or whatever, but the application hasn't been identified in an IP address. It's the port number that says, okay, I'm here at the computer and I've got a package for companion, or, you know, and so that's why all these ports run it. Every application uses a port because that's its communication channel. And so you get to the door, then you get to the application. That's the IP address and then the port number. And so just a little bit more clarity there. All right, so you add the module, and then when you get it configured and you're using the module, if you go back to the button, then that, I mean, I'm telling you, this was one of my biggest breakthroughs ever, because there is in 3.0, I just saw the other day, a way to jump to a page with a variable, but it didn't work for me. And I tried everything. So I don't know if it's broken or what, but it didn't work for me. And it definitely didn't exist anywhere inside of 2.4.1 except one place that I saw. And I'll show you how I landed on this. When I was in the settings page, I was going through these protocols, and I saw, you know, like especially spending time on OSC, and it's like, oh, well, here's the commands that this OSC, handwritten generic OSC commands, it supports. And so I can press a button using an OSC command. I can change the background color. I can change the text style. I can set the value of a custom variable, and I can rescan for a surface. And so here's some real examples. I'm like, but it didn't have the ability to go to a page number. And so I went to HTTP. I said, well, do you? And so I ran through all this and go, it doesn't have the ability to jump to a page number. And then I finally went to TCP UDP, and sure enough, I found an example of I don't know if it's in this one. After all that, it's definitely in 241. Bank press page set. Yeah, I guess page set. Maybe it's simpler. I don't know, but it's in 241, but I don't have the ability to pull that up right now. But when I saw it here, I'm like, bingo, that's exactly what I need. But I had never used the TCP UDP module before. And so I found it and I installed it and I configured it, and it worked magic. So I did this, this page set page set example. Well, the page set's the simple command, but I had to populate its values with the custom variable actions page number. So what's the number of the actions page? And then the other is another variable that I've got called custom underscore SD for Stream Deck. And it's just the ID, the name ID of my Stream Deck. And so I tell it to go to that page. And what it does is you can tell it to do that in your emulator in companion software, or I'm telling it to do it on my hardened external device Stream Deck. And so I just patch that in, and now whatever now, like if I moved my actions page to page 12, I just have to change one variable to the value of 12, and all my buttons will adhere to it. And so it becomes super useful to use them. Now, the return, now that you've seen this, the return is easier to explain because it's the same, virtually the same. So when I go to my actions page, to that return button, look what it's doing. It's doing really the exact same thing. It's doing a page set on the TCP command, and it's referencing that value. When I pressed the button that says go to actions, what did I do right before I told it to go? I set the value of its page number, like who's doing this. And so when the return button comes here and gets pressed, it's going to that page that called it, and that's how it's doing it. So it once you use it once, you like, to me, it's magic. It makes, it makes it so easy to have, one button burns versus multiple buttons that get burned and so forth. One of the big great features of Companion 3.0 is for well, let me go to a button that has some definition. You can, here's a button text string, and there's this little box with an A in it next to it, and that says it's in the string mode. So whatever I type here, it's going to, put in the button, because it's just a string. It just takes everything as a string. But it also supports being in what's called the expression mode, and that lets you put in not only, like, you can do whole variables in the string mode, but you can do variables. You can do conditional variables as well. You can say, if 1 is greater than 5, then put this value, otherwise put that value. You can actually write that all in one line, and it will know how to decipher that because you've put it in the expression mode versus the string mode. And you can do that for for all kinds of buttons. If I go back to the ones that have like feedback, I think it's the feedback sections that really make use of it. It's not there. Somewhere here there's many fields, and I don't remember where I saw it so much, but you can tell it whether it's in some of these not the drop downs, but when they are text-based fields here, you can tell it you're going to give it an expression or just a typed value. And if you want to learn more about, I'll leave it at this. If you want to learn more about expressions, go over to the left side of Companion, click on Getting Started, and you can scroll down to, if you've done any programming historically, you'll get this when you see it. it starts talking about what expressions, you know, it supports and what are valid and what's not and so forth. But you can, I mean, you can use any of these operators and have it recognize them. You can use any of these string and numeric functions as well. So if you wanted to round a number, you know, if you wanted to round a number and take the decimals off, whatever the case is, there's so much power in this tool these days. So anyways, let me get back to, I wanted to show you one other. Oh, these switches. So on the actions page across the top, you see this one is, it's actually a left right just switch, because it just tells you where it is, gallery view or speaker view. If I go to my Mac screen, you'll see gallery view, speaker view, gallery view, speaker view, right? And so that's what that's all about. Let me get back to my other screen here. And so it's just an indicator, you know, it's just, I mean, it's just two graphics, one with a white dot on the left side and one graphic with a dot on the right side. And when you get to the function itself, there's a step 1 and a step 2. It ends up being, you know, really good use of this. It says, you know, step 1, when you press the button, set it to speaker view. And step 2 is to set it to gallery view. The magic for the graphic comes from the feedback tab. And that is it's an internal, when the button is pressed, do this. And the other one, here's a treat stepped as pressed latch compatibility. So you default the graphic on the main page. What I mean by that is, when you build a button from the get-go, you have this graphic up here that says browse and load a graphic. Well, by default, you have to pick what you want. Like when you show it by default, what do you want it to be? Then when you get to feedback, when you're changing it, what do you want it to become, right? So you have that default, and then what do you want it to become? And then it just goes back and forth all by itself. So if I, you know, just click this, you can see it happen. Same thing with same concept graphically for screen share. So it says share screen 1. Share screen 1 is connected to my ISO machine. it has a gallery view up on the screen right now. And if I press share screen 1, it instantly, like, it's the fastest share I've ever seen pop up, by the way. And it just, you know, I press the button, I release the button. I press the button, I release the button. And I don't know if you saw, you know, the switch, but that's what it looked like under the share screen one instead. That's the original sound. But you've got that. So name labels, if I were to go to, well, yeah, Mac screen 1, and name labels are on, name labels are off. They're on, they're off. Now, I'm not doing this for others in the meeting. I'm doing this for the ISO machine that it's connected to, or the OSC machine that it's connected to. Non-video users. And so I can make them hide, or I can show them. And so this is just helping my view, allowing the unmute. This is David or Ray, since you're co-host. I'm going to allow unmute. Now go check under, I think you can see that. Can you control that as co-host?
You want us to allow unmute?
No, I want you to check the status. Are people allowed to unmute right now?
I don't see. Yes,
Okay.
they are allowed to unmute.
Now I'm going to turn it off. You might have to close that dialog and reopen it to get it to refresh, but now are they allowed to unmute?
No, they're not.
Correct. And so I'll turn it back on so you can, but that's a global setting with that that switch. And
So how did you make that? That's a toggle switch.
yeah, it's just a graphic. It's just a graphic I found and chose to chop up and trim out and size and use. But it was just that's one graphic, the red, and that's a second graphic, the green. And then in Photoshop, I just created one graphic that says non-video users. They both say non-video users, but one of them that I exported to a PNG was green and one of them was red. That was it. And I'm just switching the whole graphic between.
Right, but the button itself, is that a button with two different actions?
No, it's not two different actions. Find my mouse here. So non-video users, for instance, is
But do the allow unmute if that's okay.
Uh-huh. So you've got a step 1, step 2, and so step
Right.
1 is to enable users to unmute, and step 2 is disable users to unmute. So you are executing two different steps, exactly like what a latch used to be. Is you would create the latched action and the unlatched action. Now that is step 1 and step 2. That gives them the same behavior.
And did you create that button starting with a preset? Like the button itself, is it an internal action or
I
a?
don't think so. I don't remember. I might have drugged the. Are you asking? Is there a preset?
There are presets for each.
Yeah. Oh, for each. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll use a preset and I'll just drag it out because I don't want to forget to add that functionality to that button. Sometimes I use a preset to give me a hint of what the real names of the actions are, because I know I'm going to put it all in both in one button, but you're saying they have two presets, one for each side of that mode. So, and some things aren't in presets. Most everything's in presets, but not every single thing. And that's where you do that search in a browse. So those are toggles of statuses that I wanted to show. So outside of that, recording, if I'm already cloud recording, I don't want to mess with that. I'll hit local. If I hit local, same concept is there's an action to start a local record, end a local record, and it's a 2-step deal where it changes the graphic and the word on to off, right? And so it's on or it's off. And same thing with cloud, except I don't want to affect that because I want this cloud record to stay intact. But I almost did it for on stage, off stage, but I decided against that because you could press it once, but now in that sense, you're committed to off staging them. Now, I will say there's something that I saw that I have not messed with yet, and that is, where did I see it? Was it just a button? Oh yeah. So you have this press action, put in your action, release action, put in your action, but there's this duration group as well. And this says add a short key release action, which I don't know what that exactly means timing wise, but this says release after 1,000 milliseconds, but that's configurable. And so you can actually change the duration of this wait time. So I'm thinking this is about, like somebody posted something the other day on a thread that said, I don't want to have accidental double hits on buttons. And so that would be, if it happens within this amount of time, don't do it. But if that second hit comes after, let's say, a full second or whatever, then go ahead and take it seriously. And so I think that's what this is after, is either, time waits. It says release after a certain amount of time, and it can be extended, and so and then there can be shorts. So I don't know. It's like, do it, but can you interrupt it? Like if it's going to wait 5 seconds and then it'll release it, is that giving you time to interrupt it and cancel that next action? I don't know that for sure, but it's caught my attention. I just haven't really put it to use yet. All right, that I think that's it. I default to the multi-select mode. You can see this middle button, just multi to select, and the multi to select mode is actually in the settings, right, of the module. So that ISO OSC module, actually it's defaulting to single select. I want it to be multi-select, but it defaults here, and the number of groups you can manage are configured here. but then when you're back here making changes, then you can override it as well. But you can pick your default in the config, and that's just a matter of saying, hey, Ray, spotlight. And or if Ray is selected and I select David, it unselects Ray and selects David. But if I want to select Ray and David and Pete, that's the multi-select mode. And here's the deal: you can't pick more than one in the single select mode. I can still pick just one in the multi-select, but I can also pick many. So I default to multi, but it's totally subjective to how you want to run with it. So anyways, that's all I've got. That's plenty. I have a reset module. Every once in a while we run into data not feeding and keeping up and so forth. So the reset module button is just a, hey, kill the module and bring it back on. And behind that is a 2-second delay. It just shuts it off, waits 2 seconds, brings it back on, and hopefully it starts repopulating data, and all is well. All right, David.
Yeah, not a chance.
Not a
My
chance.
head's about to explode.
Yeah, but to share, I mean,
oh my God. I for some reason I can't get the feedback to work correctly, which is really bugging me. But I'll add one thing to what you said. I'm going to add one little thing to what you said, and that is the active speaker button, which they just fixed. It's entirely possible you talked about this, and I was lost in everything you said.
I didn't. No, it's a good
Okay,
point.
so this is something they just sort of fixed, which is really nice. So, and I have it up at the top of every page.
So when I start talking, that'll change to my name. That's active
Right.
speaker, right? Okay.
Right. So basically what this is I just put the variable, who is the active speaker, as the name on the, or the button text string as they call it. And then, that was working before. The part that wasn't working is that now you can pre-select user by name, and you can use the exact same text string or variable, I should say, and it will now select that person. So I can be on any page in here, and I always see up at the top left who's making noise. I can press them and mute them
yourself.
just like that.
Yeah.
So, and that also tells me, one of the things that I found is that very often, you mentioned this before, Jeff, that if you have built into your on-stage button lower hand, that sometimes they'll jump off stage and then you can't find, and then they want to come back and you can't find them again because they haven't raised their hand. So this way, if someone's making noise, I can see it and I can quickly press them and put them back up on stage. So that button for me was really important.
Yeah, and I mean, can I just extend some thinking, like use case thinking on that one? They could be an active speaker, and you say, and so I want to be able to select them and do something. Well, what if they're faster than you, and you didn't get a chance to do before the active speaker value changed? So I go, okay, well, I'll cure that. When I select them, when I push that button, not only will it select them, but it'll put them in that custom group I maintain only for the troublemakers called group 5. And so when I push it, it selects and adds them to 5. Boom. So now even if another speaker starts speaking, they're captured, right? They're on sticky tape, if you will. I can think of all kinds of cool things that could be done. I forgot to show this real quick. Let me say, sorry, I'm just going to jump in the middle here. This, kind of based on this active speaker thing, I forgot about this. I have group 3. I haven't been managing group membership, but I can tell you that these names in group 3 are everybody who spoke in this meeting today. How cool is that? Because I had built a trigger that says auto. Is it this one? I think it's this one. Yeah. So this one is auto select active speaker, and to David's point, it always knows who's that active speaker, and so with that it says, the event is on when a variable changes, that's the event. And as David's described, an active speaker is changing. And so I say, it drops down, the list of variables. You can pick which one. I said the active speaking variable. And I didn't have to give it any further conditions. I just said, when the value of the active speaker changes, clear the participants first, pre-select the username, which is to select them, and then add them to group 3. And so as a result, this group 3 literally gives you a list of everybody who spoke in this meeting today, who had something to say, everybody who contributed. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought it was kind of a creative approach of, out of everybody, these are the ones who had something to actually contribute. So anyways, back to you, David.
Are you doing add select to group? Add selection to group? Is that how you're
on the trigger?
Yeah.
On the trigger itself,
add selection to group.
And then add selection. Yeah, add selection to the group. So I cleared the participants first just to make sure I'm not, like misadding others. But
so I've got here. So this is this active speaker button. So pre-select that user. Then I want to add that selection to group. Put a little delay here. Let's see if that works now. So I'm selecting myself and it should pop me right into group 1. Now if
and
I
then
go
I'll talk and I'll be in group 1 too. So now let's go look at group 1.
Oh, no, because mine, I didn't set my, there you go. There are the two. Mine button only works if I press it. I set mine up not as a variable, not as a
trigger, but
right.
yeah. So it needs a press, but yeah, that's so cool. So did it add? You pressed it twice. You pressed it once while you were talking and once while I was talking.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was going to say it couldn't have added 2 at once. All right. Cool. I'd be interested. I mean, I don't know who else is still here and paying attention. I can see Pete, but as far as any other, thoughts or concepts or, when you work jobs, things that you find yourself needing to do or having to do, um, and we haven't given you an idea that it can be done yet. I mean, it cause us to go try and get creative here and see if it can be done, because not everything can be. I mean, we've definitely run into some stop points, and sometimes we get a chance to put either report a bug or into GitHub, or a request for a feature if it feels like it's not a selfish feature that would only serve us versus everybody. I had a conversation. Well, I didn't have a conversation. I posted yesterday, just for clarity and validation, that we have a gallery page, we have a kind of order of arrival participant ID page. You have group pages that have people in them if you add people to them. All these different pages where you can select folks and then spotlight or do act on them, if you will. And I'm like, well, what if I'm sitting here, managing an event, and I've got the next 3 people, selected, but real quickly I'm like, oh, I need to add these 2 to group 2. It doesn't matter what page they're selected on. If you've got 2 that are 3 ready to go on stage, and you want to go do something to 2 others, and you can find them the easiest on the participant page or whatever, there's only one selection group. They're all the same. If you clear the selected, all the selected go away. It doesn't matter what page they were selected from. See what I'm saying? It's like you're in kind of show mode, but then you're in people management group membership mode. The selection is all the same plate, if you will. And so I had never really thought about that before. And so I just wanted clarity that is in fact true, and I wasn't missing anything. And quite honestly, I was really surprised at Jeffrey Davidson, who's, I think, the one doing the primary development here. He said, why don't you, submit that to GitHub as a feature, a feature called like recall previous selections. And I'm like, okay. and so I did last night, I think, and the feature's done already. So in one of these pushes here in the next few days, it takes a while to get all the way through the system and out there on the companion site for download, but we'll soon have a way. So I'll be able to change my mind real quickly, go into a management mode versus a show mode, hit clear and pick these 3 people real quick, throw them into group 3, and then go back into show mode and recall the previous selection, which would have been those show folks, if the speakers that were going to be spotlit. And I'm just like, it's kind of cool, kind of cool having, and I'm nothing special. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than me contributing into GitHub and them replying. They would do that for anybody who submits into the GitHub site. So I would, go to GitHub, github.com, search. I'll put it in. I'll put the whole URL in the chat actually, and pull it up here real quick. Just create an account, and you can do it just to monitor if all you want to do is monitor, or you can submit bugs or requests for new features, whatever the case may be. but the URL is right there in the Zoom chat. And
You actually don't even need the URL. If you go into
yeah, there's a link inside
connections, there's a little bug right there. And
Yeah.
if you click on that, it'll take you right there, which is really nice.
It is. And, I mean, and it instantly takes you to, the 12 current issues that are in there. When you click on the 12 issues, then you can look at just everything that's there. You can see what's open, you can see what's closed. I mean, it's very, very cool. Actually, here I'm gonna, just for the sake, I don't remember what the link in the module compared to this one. I'm going to update this one in the chat that goes directly to the issues, and there's a 12 open, 38 closed right now, and so forth. So anyways, it's a great way to help the project continue because it's open source. It's free, but somebody is out there working, and sometimes they need some guidance and some help, but sometimes they can tell you why it can't be done or shouldn't be done, or maybe even shouldn't be done that way, but we could do it this way. It really makes a really big difference, and feels good to be a contributor as well, to some thought process there. So anyways, David, anything else you got? Sorry to steal all the thunder. I didn't want to.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? That was amazing. That was amazing.
I mean, bring up, I mean, if you would, can you just bring up at least the interfaces, because, design is half the battle, right? As far as workflow and so forth is, thought process. If you have a different thought process.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm actually really struggling with this. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not happy with the way I have it. So for my particular workflow, most of the time that I'm using this, I'm the presenter. I'm the one who's on stage. And so what I did is, obviously I've got a spot me button right there, right? And that's just well, I have these linked to another page so that I don't have to update them. But this is just a spotlight, and then I put my username in because I know my username is always going to be the same. But so I've got, what I did is I built these pages out with what I think are, over on the right hand side, the actions mostly. So on stage, off stage, full spotlight. I have a mute button and a lower hand button because I find that even though I have those built into these buttons, they don't always take.
Absolutely.
And so I want to just kind of have quick access to those. Clear selections, again, that's built into each of these buttons, but clear spotlight when I want to just allow it to be in gallery view. I've got that what do you call it? The single multiple selection toggle that you have. The next and previous buttons. I've got these two add to group buttons, and the way these work is if I let me make sure I'm on the right page. If I select a few people and then I add them to group one, it's also going to take me on my, it didn't here, but it takes me right to my group one, which is nice. I've got a clear group. I've got obviously this select group there. And then this, I find this really important. I just want a quick button that's going to allow me to make sure that, like right now, for some reason, I'm not in gallery view. So I'm going to press that. And
that's because I spotlight you. So
okay.
me over here. So it forced it into speaker, and where most of your buttons will take you, it'll do whatever and then take it back to gallery.
Right.
But because I did it, it didn't. Yeah.
So I think that my struggle is I've got all of these meeting actions. Oh, one thing I'll say, by the way, is that all of these action buttons over here, none of these are actual buttons. All these are doing is referencing a button on another page. So I use trigger, press, and release it, and then it is doing the action that's on page 10 in this spot. So what I did is I set up page 10 with these actions. And that way, if I want to update these actions, I just have to update them in one spot and all my other pages will automatically update.
Yep.
So that's one nice thing. But this is my kind of main meeting actions page, right? This is all the stuff that won't fit on these pages. Right over here, I have over here. And also, as you were mentioning before, the group actions. Let me go back to one of these pages just so you can see. So if I click on meeting actions, it's going to take me to that page. And then because I almost always live in gallery view, I put the gallery button in the same spot as the meeting actions button. And then I've got my list view and then my 3 groups. And as I didn't know about the number of people in each group, that's very, very cool. So I did that also. I put the number. So if I were to add a few people to this group, add to group 1, I get the number. I can see how many people are in that group, which is really nice. And then I've got all these other buttons. There's a part of me that feels like what I really need is 2 Stream Decks.
Yeah.
One with all of my participants, and then the second with the actions. And I'm so close to doing that because I don't really need it, to be perfectly honest with you. But I just, multiple pages is nice, but I'm all about the fewest button presses. And, so here, for example, I've got my eject button up here. If I go into, what I have to do to kick someone out now is I have to click on them, click on actions, and then click on eject. That's 3 button presses where what I really want is press. I know it's just 1 button press less, but so that's what I'm struggling with. I'm really struggling with how I make this the most functional that it can be.
Yeah. No, and it's, and here's the even the harder part of, because I'm right with you on that. I never thought I would ever have this ask for a second Stream Deck, but I'm right there with you but what's a little bit shameful about it is what will become my justification for that second Stream Deck XL will be so I can always have that one page, the actions page there, so I can select and hit.
Exactly.
So I'm only using one of the 99 possible pages,
right?
But yet I've spent the money for that. So the question is, can you, when you get an XL at 32 buttons, can you accomplish that with 15? And the answer is a quick, easy no.
Right.
Not a chance. For a page full of actions. Now, I will say that, having, I don't even know if I can get here. If I go to my iPad screen, now this is vMix, but if I pulled up the emulator, I kind of already have, the ability to display that actions page, and it's sitting right next to my Stream Deck, and so, but the touch screen, I think I did it last week in the kitchen, accidentally brushed an area and ended up, switching the output to something that I didn't want. Yeah. And it wasn't bad. It was just, just change cameras. And,
Pete, I see your comment, and Pete, I'm with you. I've got 3 that I use right now, 2 XLs and 1 15 button. The 15 button I just use for Zoom, really, for standard Zoom. It's, you're right though. That the kicker is that we've got 99 pages here. It's 99 problems, but you won't be one. Well, yeah. So I see that on my Stream Deck in Companion,
Pete,
Andre
Pete, you might be
up.
typing because we accidentally left the unmute.
Yeah. So
one and thing Andre also has his hand up.
One thing I want to, I think it was Dave, right? One thing I want to respond to you with is that if you have 2 Stream Decks, and I found this out on my own, I have an XL and a regular deck on one computer. The regular deck I use that to change the pages on the Excel deck. Okay, so it frees up a couple of buttons on the Excel deck for you to move around. My other computer is set up similar like that.
So one workflow could be, I get a mini, right? I get the, sorry, I'm out of focus.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah.
You get like a 6 button, right? And you just kind of, you're holding that in your hand and you got 2 buttons on there. You've got, or whatever, 4, you've got a button for, that's your navigation basically.
Yeah.
So I've got that in my right hand and I can go from, I know that the bottom right hand button is actions. I can press that. It's going to immediately switch my main Stream Deck to, I might get one just to see how that works.
I would, if you're going to go that way, I would recommend getting the regular deck because you can add a few extra features on it.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have a mini, but just to try it out, and it works great. But cost effectiveness for the mini versus the 15 button deck, I just assume spend the money on that.
Yeah.
So
Andre, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I saw something interesting, Jeff. At your buttons on the Stream Deck, the E of my first name isn't showing because it has this accent over the. In David's layout, it is showing, and I was wondering why. And I already also saw that. So on the button on your Stream Deck, the E isn't showing, but on the right side, if you go to like the so if you go to the right side of this companion thing and see some name buttons there, the E is showing. And I wonder how can this be?
Well, from a technology, just simple point of view, it's international character set versus Latin. But the question is, why is the software acting differently, international versus Latin character set?
Where are you seeing
So if you look at
I can definitely see it missing.
So Jeff, on your companion profile, if you go somewhere where you see the name buttons on the right side as well, then you will see. So in the preset section, so to say, then you will see that the E is right, but on the buttons themselves, it's not right. You see there, rename Andre Dillon
in the presets. Yeah. I see.
Yeah, mine has it.
Yeah. So yours has it in the button also.
Yep. Right there.
Do we have version differences?
I'm running.
That was going to be my question.
I'm on
56, 54.
That's what I'm running.
Huh.
That's
Do we have hardware revision versions?
Let me drag the Andre preset onto a blank space here. It says rename. Yeah, it stayed if I did that. Let me go to let me be very exact. I know it. Well, let's go gallery first. Gallery. It's not showing right on the left side, but it is showing correctly on the right side. So let me go mimic this and see if it holds. So if I bring it on from the preset, it shows it properly. So if I copy this code that's responsible for showing the name.
Yeah, before pasting, please look at what's in there right now.
Let me open a text editor. Here we go. So and BB edit. $sign OSC position 1.
There seems to be no way that it could change the character because it's only a variable.
I mean, yeah, it's a variable, so I'm gonna just paste over mine there.
And it didn't take it. That's interesting.
No, it didn't. It didn't take. Yeah, it didn't take it, and it's the it's the same. Let's see, ISO module gallery position 1. OSC ISO module gallery position 1. I just don't know how that.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
super interested, but
Is the font different on the two? This is showing auto. What about the other one?
no,
The one
other
that's
one's-
broken.
I fix these fonts, so I mean, because I can fit like 6 or 7
Oh,
lines of
my
data.
point is that
I
the
understand. I'm
font
gonna
that you're,
change it
yeah.
back to font.
there you
look,
go.
Yeah. Great
There you
point,
go.
because auto, how bizarre is that?
The font doesn't have the special characters in it, simply.
But it's not a font, by all indications, though, visually, it's not a font setting, it's a font size setting. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
they're obviously behind the scenes.
Seeing
In
something's
order
going on.
to accomplish the size, they're also changing the family of the font, which is wild. So I'll definitely get that put into GitHub. I don't know that that's a OSC thing as much as that's actually a companion module issue, but we'll get it in both places and see whoever needs to handle it handles it. Yeah, great find. Great point, great find. Now we can get it submitted as well.
Yeah, Jeff, I would actually say too that it's actually might be actually companion.
No, I think
more
it's
than anything.
companion. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Because of
this
it being the
the
font.
interface. I mean, yeah, the ZoomOSC module is not writing, code for the font size, that's for sure. But, at the same time, auto drives me out of my mind because, you end up with these buttons. Short text is nice and big and fat, and the smaller text or a lot of text is smaller. It's just, it jumps all over the place. It drives me nuts. And I'd rather just, force myself to get used to, kind of a medium or small font in order to, fit some of these long names. And they're not always names. They can be names and pronouns and all kinds of characters for different reasons. And I'd like to be able to, see them, read them, and so forth. And I have line breaks in them intentionally, so yeah, that's a good find. All right, cool. 402, Tamara, if you're gone, I'm sorry I missed you.
Maybe another question if nobody else wants. So in earlier versions of Companion, it was really a problem to paste in PNGs because there was kind of a memory limitation, and if you had too many PNGs with too much memory needed, then Companion would slow down immensely, or you wouldn't be able to like import import complete configs into Companion because it would break down. This issue isn't there anymore, right? So
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I haven't had any issues, and I'm not using tons, of several graphics on,
you
maybe
do use tons of
8 pages of 8 pages max of graphics. If that's a lot, then I would say, if that would have caused the issue you're talking about in the past, it certainly hasn't been any issue for me. I will say it's if I go back to my Mac screen and point to this, as far as distribution and backup is, clicking on export gives you the, ability to choose what you want to export. So your connections, and the connections are the modules, the libraries, so do you want to export your vmix module or your ISO OSC module and so forth? Do you want to export the buttons or not, triggers, custom variables, and surfaces? And surfaces, I can say, if I'm sharing this with somebody, that would probably be the one that I would uncheck, but I want them to be able to have the custom variables that, the pages I'm sharing with them will become dependent on. The triggers, want to share those and so forth as well. And then when I'm going to go ahead and just do that real quick. So there's a copy and it ends up in your downloads folder. On the import, then you can just jump out to point to a file. So if I were to go to downloads, you can see how often I'm just doing quick exports. But you can click on that and you can do a full import and or you can do selective. So if you wish to do a more selective import, check the other tabs, which are these buttons and or triggers, and or you can do a full import. Now, full import is you can be selective about buttons, triggers, and this says perform a full reset and import the selected components. And do you want to do that reset and import on buttons, triggers, variables, or surfaces, or any selection thereabouts? But it's going to reset your deck. So if I were to share something with you, you'd want to do a full export of your own stuff first as a backup, then bring this in, and because it'll wipe out, this one, the full import will wipe everything out and import this as the whole thing. So all your work won't be represented on its own. Or you can bring in pages, it says buttons, pages. So this source is the file that we went out there and pointed to import from. This is my local file. Where do I want it destined? So if you wanted a copy of my gallery page, you would keep it on gallery there, but you can say, hey, I want to put that on my page 10, and or I'll go a little further out, put it on my page 15, and so that's where it will haul over. The other thing that you have to consider is, do you have the modules? And because all these calls and variables and so forth come from the knowledge of a module. If you don't have it at all, you've never worked with the OSC ISO module, then you can tell it to create a new connection. If you have worked with OSC ISO module and you have it in your companion already, just check mark it or leave it selected the way it auto selected it. I will say I went one time, I did an import not too long ago, just the other day. And I said, well, I've already got all these modules. I'm just going to tell it to ignore them because I've already got them. And that was a mistake because not a single command or output was tied to anything. And so it was a functionless import. So it was, if you have it, don't ignore it. If you have it, tie it to it, bind it to the one you've got. And if you don't have that module, just tell it to create a new one and it'll go get it for you. So those are the big pieces. This is a lot more flexible, but I think it takes a little bit of practice. And then if you just wanted, is like, hey, Jeff, I want that active speaker, that automatically puts people in a group, then you could you could import, don't import any of the triggers except that one, and then it would, bring in that one, or you can import them all, but and tie that to a module as well. So a lot of flexibility to, bring stuff in, share it, hand it to somebody else, whatever the case may be, to make all that happen. But I'll say export often while you're, if you start digging into 3.0. So David and I are both on Macs, and I have let's see, I have two versions now. I have in my applications folder, I have Companion. That's my stable 2.4.1. I also have another folder in my applications folder called Companion 3.0. And I mean, they push builds every day. And so, I mean, I don't even know, David, if you'll look up the download site, I'm on 5654 right now. I'm sure they've got something fresher than that. And
For Windows, I just updated. It's 5668.
Yeah, 5668. So it moves at a pretty fast clip. But I just
5657 on
5657 on. Okay. So I'm at 5654. There's a 5657 right now, and these are these small incremental pushes and so forth that we kind of cross our fingers and say, hey, I wonder if that's gotten out there yet. But I just keep a folder under my apps folder called Companion 3.0, and I replace. So when I download the latest and it says, hey, drag this over to the applications folder, I don't drag it over to the applications folder. I have a second Finder window open to that 3.0 folder, and I drag it out of the install, pop-up dialog directly into the 3.0 folder, and I tell it to replace the companion that's in there, knowing that one, their website now supports rollbacks. They had that kind of gone for a little bit, but it's back now. Two, my downloads folder in my Mac has all of them that I've downloaded. So if I needed to roll back to a previous version or whatnot, they're all there for now. So, and they're not huge, but that is about it. So anything else?
Jeff, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Hasn't there been an issue with importing triggers? Is this gone, or was this in version 2?
No,
no?
I don't know. I've gotten more involved with triggers in 3.0 than in 2.4.1. And I mean, triggers existed, but I don't recall there being this separate triggers import tab in that separately. I could be wrong though, because I wasn't intimate, with how all that functionality existed in the stable version. I do know that triggers themselves, the functionality of triggers is tons larger. So many more events that you can act on and respond to, and so it's unbelievable. So they're really, really rich in 3.0. All right, David, got anything?
I got nothing, and I got to jump.
Yeah. Been a good day. It's been a great project, and I mean I'm not the one thing, the big piece that I haven't done yet is build my missing page is breakout room management, and that's the one that I've got to get taken care of and built. So there's that, and then there's if there's fixed meetings, Zoom test kitchen, office hours, things like that, there's fixed meetings that you go to, you can just have a button that joins a meeting, and makes things super simple and straightforward. But anyways, there's, you just dig through the presets, really. I dig through the presets and just go, hey, what's there, kind of, and they help a lot because they have them all categorized. And so that really kind of helps drive your page design as far as grouping goes. And then, some things I'm interested in and some features that they've got, presets that they've got, I don't really care. I just can't imagine in what I'm doing that I would really ever use them. And so I feel no commitment to drag every single preset out. But sometimes I drag them all out just so that I can delete them or keep them, delete them or keep them, and then build them. So, hey, Mike, what you got?
Just a quick question when it comes to the actual difference between when, like, for our meeting today, you are actually logged in twice, obviously, with Jeff ISO and your main account. They're two separate accounts, right? They're not the same account logged in twice.
In this case, they're not, but they could be. The one benefit of the OSC/ISO client is it gets that exception that mobile devices and browser sessions get. So if my main account, I also logged in from a mobile device or a browser, it doesn't force the other one to log out. And ISO has that same treatment. It's a SDK client, and therefore it lets you use the same account at the same time. I don't practice it, but I know it's doable.
And definitely you're running it on two different machines, right? Not on the same machine.
I am. Yeah, I'm running on two different machines. Yeah. So yeah, my main is a Windows 10 PC with vMix and the regular Zoom client, and then my M1 Mac sitting next to me. That's my ISO companion box. Best practice, Andy from the very beginning said, hey, this should be the way you set it up, for redundancy. And Jeff ISO, the Jeff Widgren account is the main one. That's the host of this meeting. Jeff ISO obviously is the second machine in the meeting, and I made it a co-host.
Yeah, and I think this actually is related to Tom's question in the chat too. What type of account is Jeff ISO?
What type of an account? What do you mean by type? Like,
can it be a free account? Does it have to be a business account?
It can be a free account. I mean, the meeting runs under the parameters of my host, right? My account is the person who holds the license, right? That's not that's the host, but that's at least the way it starts. The person who starts the meeting is the one who scheduled the meeting. That license with all the rights and privileges that come with it, whether it's free or paid, is what the meeting will remain running under. So the ISO client it's a Zoom client, right? And so you can log in with any account, whether you can log in with credentials to a free account or a paid account. It doesn't matter because it logging in is not going to change, free to, it's not going to extend the time. It's not going to shorten the time. It's not going to affect any of that.
Right. So how did you actually get it to be? I noticed with you and Andre, you both have it black when you guys are connected. How did you get it to do that instead of showing up, like your account picture?
Choosing NDI camera.
Tom.
Choosing NDI as a camera and having not a source feeding it.
You're saying it looks like it thinks you have a camera, but you don't. Yeah, it's exactly that. So my ISO machine, the camera that is selected is NDI video. It's the only camera it thinks it has in it. I don't even have my Brio connected to the Mac right now, although I usually do. But it's NDI video. Well, there is no NDI feed coming to that, but yeah, if I shut it off, the profile picture comes up. But if
Right.
I turn the camera on, there's nothing there, but it still thinks it's a camera.
Okay.
Often I'll take like I'll launch NDI virtual input on my Mac and tell it to take a feed off my V. It's not feeding it. I shut that off. But I have a couple of inputs on my. Sorry about that. I have some inputs, so I'm going to set an output number 35. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to tell it to NDI output it. Now on my Mac, that NDI virtual input, I can say, hey, go to vmix and take in that feed. And so vmix is outputting that video via NDI. I can turn it on. It's not a whole lot of movement, but there's a little bit of movement. And NDI is just, over on the Mac now. And it's taking that NDI feed and sending it up to Zoom as if it were a webcam. It's emulating a webcam. So it works out, and it's, then that's where that NDI, I guess that's where that NDI video camera option came from in Zoom, is because I installed the NDI tools from NewTek. I had forgotten where that came from. So I decided to just sit here and do this all day like that guy, that model. I have other ones there, he's banging his head, and he's just like, when I do tests here in the studio, I bring like 6 of my systems into the meeting, and that's what I do, is I just add this guy who I grab. He's a model that does these video clips, expression video clips, and so they seem to work pretty effectively. Anyways, I guess that's about it. Anything else, you guys?
I just wanted to say thank you for letting me join your community today. I learned a few things, and I hope I gave.
Tom, where did you come to us from?
I work for a nonprofit called the Aspire Institute. I'm their technology manager. We work with first and family college students around the world and do some large meetings. And I knew about Alex's, what was the previous version of this called?
Yeah, well, Alex has, I don't know. I mean, Alex is office hours, after hours.
Oh.
And I mean, we both, I listened to office hours and I've spent time with Alex, and over the years, we do similar things, but they're much broader than kind of the Zoom.
Oh, so this is a different group. I thought this was the same thing, that they had renamed office hours.
It's a different group. There's a lot of folks who come in, who, I don't know, there are not very many people that are here that aren't also in office hours, and so it's been a great place. We've been here doing this for almost 2.5 years, every Friday, and so it's a great community. The Facebook group is about 1,100 people. The email list that's absolutely specific to registrations just for the Zoom Test Kitchen, those who attend this meeting, is about 700 strong. So, over that time, that many unique folks have registered. So,
I think I'm on that list because I got the invite, and it sort of sits on my calendar. It sits on the calendar, and it's like whenever I get a chance, it's like, oh, I have a chance today.
There you go. Well, certainly glad you came in and visited with us, and hopefully some things we shared were helpful. And
yeah, I'm looking at trying to do the Stream Deck. It looks like it will be helpful. I'm just like, it seems a little daunting at the moment.
Yeah, it's just, I just say start simple, build that. I mean, literally, now the simple, like, we didn't do it this week, but here we'll close on this. we'll go to Mac Screen 2. We'll spotlight me real quick, and I'll just bounce back to a dark, empty page. Okay. And once you have to have that module there. You have to have this OSC ISO module. So if you don't, add a connection, go find, just type in Zoom and add the ZoomOSC module. Once you do that, then you'll have access to these presets. And so on this blank empty page, I'll tell this thing to reset. There's your navigation buttons. Yeah, I'll tell it to throw the default buttons up there, so it looks familiar. But when you go to these presets, you say, oh, let's just start with that gallery page that they showed. So out of all the presets, here's the order of arrival of everybody. Here's the gallery page, which is
okay. So they're giving you some stuff here to start
starters, and you just go, hey, there's gallery.
Boom, 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 boom.
Number 2, number 3, number 4, and I mean, dude, it's it right now. The default behavior of these buttons is to simply select the person that you press the button on. So you can see here, pre-select this user in the gallery, position number 3, and toggle it. So I can select it, deselect it, and so forth. So if I clicked on Andre and and push the button on test action, I push the button, it turns yellow. It has all that built in under feedback as well. You can see here where it turned the background yellow. That was position number 4 is selected. Oh, make it black on yellow. And that's exactly what it did. That all came with the preset. And you can change it, but that's kind of the way it lands. And so with that, you can select it, and then you go, oh, well, I want to follow that selection with a spotlight. And he is not on camera, so I should probably use somebody else. Mike is still here on camera. So I'm going to say test action, do Mike, unselect Andre, but I want a spotlight. You go, oh, I don't have a spotlight button yet. So you go back to the presets, and
somewhere in here is going to be spotlight.
Yeah, you're gonna find it. You're gonna pin spotlight and view. And so here's spotlight, that's singular. Here I'll just say add. And so now if I select Mike and then select spotlight, Mike
he's
is
been
now
added.
spotlight. It's just that simple. So I really wanted to, I knew I could pretty quickly and try to extinguish the daunting part. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can get started with the basics just that quick and easy. And then it's just over time, you'll start
fine-tuning what works
polish
best
it to
for
the way you
yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
So yeah,
and it's always a good idea. Oh, sorry, it's always a good idea to not only check the presets, but take a regular button and then see what actions are all available from the ISO module, because there are much more than this one in the presets.
The preset file it does.
It's
great. Get it.
So presets are a great way to click and drag and start. But if you click on a blank button,
you're not showing,
and click on regular. Oh,
you can't hear us.
Sorry. There we go.
There we go.
You click on a blank button and you say, you don't even have to click on a button. You can just go to presets. You go, no, I don't want to do presets. So click on a blank button, tell it it's a regular button, and then you can type whatever you want to do here. Say, yeah, test, good old test. And but you go down here to browse. Like, this is the action. What will it do when you press it? And so you click browse. And
there'll be 100 or 1,000 possible things it will
do. Click on
do.
that OSC module, and this is everything it offers. And you can just start, I mean, yeah, tons. And but it doesn't stop there. It's like, there's going to be some things, and you saw them in our presentation today, that are really dealing with companion. And so you go, well, that's internal. That's, that's companion, not OSC. And
Companion being the user interface that we're seeing now that's web-based that you're using for the setup.
This whole project that lets you build it and so forth, because it's in charge of certain numbers of variables and events and so forth that are really outside the reach of ZoomOSC. But ZoomOSC can benefit. Hey, when somebody presses one of those buttons in your companion world, let them do something from our library. And so you start combining kind of the, the physical touch to an actual, but the physical touch is really a companion thing. And then it turns into an action that comes from ZoomOSC.
One last question, and then I'll get out of your hairs. What is the authentication? How does ZoomISO know that it's allowed to be in the Zoom meeting?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really know that ISO is in the meeting. I mean, it's a anybody in the world can develop a
third party for Zoom
SDK driven, solution. but it's no different. ISO is you can double click on an icon that says it's Zoom, or and you get a pop-up that says log in, you join a meeting or start a meeting.
Right.
Or you double click on an icon that is, if it's only OSC, it's gold and OSC, or it's green and it's ISO. But when you double click on those, it opens a little different looking client, but it's more of a client plus the tools that ISO and OSC gives you the benefits of. But you can log in, you can join a meeting, you can start a meeting. I mean, still
and so you've got an icon somewhere on your screen somewhere where you logged in to ZoomISO, and then the screen deck is then driving into that app.
On my PC, I opened my Zoom client, I started and opened up the Zoom test kitchen in the traditional sense of a Zoom experience. On my Mac, I could do that as well, but instead of opening the traditional Zoom client, I opened the ZoomISO client, which includes the OSC functionality, logged into it. And the only reason I had to log in is because the account owner of the Zoom test kitchen, I require you to be authenticated by Zoom to get in this meeting. So those rules still have to be abided by. And so I could, with the ISO client, just join a meeting like the regular Zoom client can just join without first signing in. But I know I have to sign in. So I sign in, which is a lot easier today on ZoomISO than it used to be. And then once I'm signed in, then I just join and type in the meeting info. And
so you don't have to go get a developer key and some of those crazy things to do sort of traditional API.
No, I mean, if I wanted to develop, but all that's done and just delivered to us as a solution.
As part of ZoomISO has dealt with those. That makes
let me share my Mac screen one. Can I? Without
we're off into infinite land.
Yeah, let me get myself on Spotlight and pin me on your screen versus me spotlighting, and you'll still be able to see this okay. But I want to just show you the ZoomISO experience. So
there it is.
Yeah, so when I come onto this machine, here's my traditional Zoom client.
Which you're not using right now.
I mean, I do use it at times, but I'm not using it, to
right
and for the Zoom test kitchen. I double click on the ISO client instead. And the ISO client, I mean, you'd hardly know the difference if this was all you saw, right? Gallery view, speaker view, chat, participants.
Oh, that gallery view is coming from ZoomISO.
This is the Zoom client, but this is no, not the traditional one. This is the client experience that we're used to, but it's being delivered through ZoomISO. So this window, the meeting window, if you will, participants, chat, all that, polls, breakouts, everything is here. That's, your primary meeting window. Here's the engine behind, ZoomISO for the video feeds, for instance. And it's on standby.
Oh,
I
it
can't
does
enable.
video. It does video feeds as well.
Yeah, so that's the ISO part. OSC is everything we've been talking about today. The switching, the spotlighting, the muting.
Oh,
That's
so you only really need
OSC.
OSC to do what we
ISO,
did today.
ISO, yeah, OSC is what we really focused on today. ISO is the one that pulls video and audio. So, yeah, that's not going to. I'm going to stop.
You can use virtual cameras here, I presume, and
Yeah,
feed
so
it into here.
I'm gonna enable ISO. I had to stop the cloud recording to do that, and I'll turn it back on now. Let me start the cloud back up. All right, so the ISO engine's enabled right now. So this is everything you've seen is OSC up to this point. This is the and OSC settings are in here as well, and the logging and so forth. But this is also the same interface that if you have ISO with OSC, you can do. So I can say how many we have on camera. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just say give me 4 outputs. I'll save some resources and say give them to me in 720. And so you can name them if you want to. I'll just leave our default name as is. The mode, I can say I want a participant, or I want a screen share. I want the active speaker, and so forth.
That's cool.
And so I'll leave it at participants for now. Here's the list of who's here. So Mike is,
and this is the streams that are coming in.
Yeah.
Through
So
Zoom.
Mike is here on camera. Tom is here on camera. Pete. Okay. And then Jeff ISO also has a recorded dude. And I'll just say those 4. Now, output type, NDI, siphon. If I just wanted to pull this isolated video out and send it into an application on this Mac, I could siphon it if that application knew how to ingest siphon. If not, I can do it to an output display. I'm going to do these on NDI. And so these will be 4 new NDI feeds at 720. And then, and I can embed the audio or not. And you can see they're doing their thing. These came at 1080. They're saying they're at 1080. But anyways, you can preview these. You say, who's there? There's a nice, clean, isolated feed of Mike. There's a nice, clean, isolated feed of yourself and Pete and my recorded guy. So there's the feed. So now if I, wanted to pull those into vMix, and let's say I add a new input, an NDI input, and that's the Mac Mini. It's got ZoomISO 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull in Mike, say okay, and now Mike, I'll cut him to my program out, and now my output, which was my desktop, is now Mike. But that's coming out of ISO to NDI. Now it's on my network wire. Now it's being ingested into vMix, and it's programmed out of vMix into my vanilla Zoom client as its camera input. And so it's kind of full circle.
There it is. That was the, and you're doing it on 2 different machines. That's why you can, okay.
It is, yeah. I mean, it could be on the same, but it doesn't have to be. But yeah, it can be across the network. It can be VPN, although, that's a bit of a heavy footprint. But the VPN component be far-reaching, NDI bridge. I mean, there's just a number of things, or you can transition it to like SRT or whatnot as well. So yeah, lots of choices. But that's ISO. That it's pulling out those clean video feeds,
and allowing you to move them other places, including other
manipulate them. You can output them to hardware as well. So it just it's one of those sayings. If you've got 18 speakers today, just have them all come to one Zoom meeting. It's easy. Nobody argues with you. Nobody hates that experience. Everybody thinks Zoom is the easiest thing in the world. And it is, if all you have to do is join a meeting. So now once they're all in that gathering point, you have with ZoomISO access to any or all of them, and you can just assign them from a Stream Deck via Companion, because the module
Yeah. Okay. Now
includes all that, because what we don't have it programmed in, but I could just as easily select these, select this person, go to ISO output 1 or output 2 or whatnot. And so it's assigning this assignment that you saw me pick those, from the drop down list, these 4 feeds. I can assign those on the fly. So now once those are all set up, now on my Stream Deck, I go, oh, this one needs to go to output 1. No, this guy needs to go to output 3. No, that, and you can just manage it on your Stream Deck super, super easy. But it would be like taking your mouse and changing the name selections on those drop downs that you just saw. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare, right?
20 minutes later, you've got the first switch done.
Or you've got vMix out there producing your output, right, to whatever, whether it's a live stream or back into a Zoom meeting. But you've got, kind of panel 1 is these 3 people, panel 4 is these 3 people or 4 people, and and now you can have where it all comes together is the OSC ability to assign this person to that output. Now you can assign these 4 people to this group, or let's rename the group to panel 1. So you have 4 people in panel 1. And now you can just, when it comes time to, get those people on screen, you just hit panel 1, which is a group of 4 people, and you assign it to an output. And it just goes bing, 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 and out it goes. And vMix takes that and does a 4 up, and away you go. It's super slick. I mean, if you haven't met, or heard from or about Andy Carluccio, he's a super sharp, incredible visionary who really,
he's the guy who did ZoomISO
OSC first, and
first,
then,
and then ISO,
and then ISO, and then his products and development got purchased and acquired by Zoom. Zoom owns them now, and they also brought him and part of his team into the organization full time as well. So yeah, it's a great product, and it just keeps getting better and better and better.
Clearly it's being developed rapidly.
Oh yeah, the leaps and bounds. We were in the group, if you will, we were kind of nervous, more out of ignorance of not knowing what it will be like now that you've been acquired and so forth. But
seems like they've done a good job of it.
Couldn't
that
ask
could be ugly
for a better 6 months to 12 months worth of this just incredible development, and this transformation into version 2.0 that we know now is just crazy. I mean, ZoomISO 2.0 is crazy good. I mean, there's still a few little issues. I mean, active screen share is a little bit of an issue.
And our little character
times,
thing, our little character set thing, with small fonts.
That's Companion, but
oh, that's true. That is Companion.
Yeah, so I'm going to screen share, and I'm just going to see if this works. I'm going to ask for this. I'm going to replace Mike in ISO with active screen share 1. Let me look at vMix, see if it got it.
Jeff, it's black for us right now.
Yeah, it is. It's a Mac desktop. Let me.
The only thing we're seeing is
it's not showing my Zoom.
Oh, we're seeing Mac desk.
Yeah, I have Zoom windows there.
Oh, there we go.
Not showing it. So I'm going to drag a window onto there so you can see it really is a monitor that it's getting. Now, now the question is, did it successfully, capture the screen share? I can tell you what I'm looking at right now. It's not. Let's go. Screen share back to active. I'm gonna drop these outputs. I mean, it's sketchy and they're working on it. I mean, it's just a known issue. I'm going to do one fresh new output to, to active screen share, share number 1, NDI, resolution's fine. Yeah, still. So, it's one of those things. I mean, I don't like presenting, the assumed perfection when it's not. I mean, I know Andre knows, I know that sometimes I have zero issue with, capturing the screen share, and sometimes I have issue, and I think Andre has been a contributor to, he does too at times. And so, just being real, but it's a project that's, well managed and continues to just get better. And that's one of the areas several of us are looking for it to get stronger. But the feeds of of the participants are solid as rock, and you really just have to understand. I mean,
Yeah.
it's doing, full NDI, so it's your heaviest footprint that NDI can consume. It's not HX or any version of.
Yeah.
And so, just have to make sure that you measure the impact versus the capability of your network and equipment and bandwidth and so forth. So outside of that, it does well.
Well, you've been, again, thank you all.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Yeah. Thanks
And
for coming in.
hopefully on some of our next events, we'll get some of these tricks
There you go.
started.
I mean, if it's a big enough event and has the budget, call me, and I'll be happy to help and share, knowing that it's not a forever thing. I'll teach and do a knowledge transfer and the whole bit. So
we might do that. We'll poke at it probably first.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, very good. Hey, TJ, you got on camera. How are you? Good to see you.
Jeff, I got 2 additional questions. Sorry, TJ.
Give me just a second to say hi to TJ, and we'll jump on it, Andre.
And take the questions. That's fine. That's how we all learn.
All right, cool. All right, what do you got, Andre?
Thanks, TJ. 2 questions. The first one, when you stopped the cloud recording and started it again, like 10 minutes ago, there wasn't a prompt that recording stopped and recording started again. At least I didn't hear it. Did the other ones hear it? And I wonder why.
No. Well, I think the reason why is you've already complied once. Why wouldn't you comply the second time within the same meeting? And so I think it's a one and go on that. I don't think that it used to do that, but I think they've probably slimmed that down a bit.
And I saw a pop-up on your machine that you were sharing. I think it was the ISO machine, or no, it was the Zoom machine, where this pop-up came: recording in progress, leave or stay. So, and the second question is, you said the login process of the ISO is much easier now. My experience is that every time I open ISO, I have to log in, or I had to use this ZAC token thing that I don't understand yet.
I'm not talking about the convenience of like caching our names or logins or things like that. I'm saying with the what do they call it? The ZAC, ZAK login methodology. It's basically handing off the login process to where you can do it for corporate, you can do it with Google, I mean, however you're logging in to the traditional client, it now, supports that as well. That's what I meant. Because I get you. It's like, it doesn't have a drop-down list of recently been in meetings, I mean, just all those little conveniences that we have in the traditional client. They're not there. I just look back, I go, but prior to version 2, man, when you brought that up and you clicked your mouse in the field and it would jump out, and you like, oh, that login screen drove me bat crazy. And now it's not that bad anymore, but little tiny things. You type in your username, you give it a meeting name, you give it your display name, and there's one other thing, and then you should be able to hit enter on your keyboard, and you can't. you have to take your mouse and you have to
Exactly.
click on the join button. You know,
Yeah.
tiny little user things like that. And I don't know, I actually really don't actually know the answer, because to a great degree, they're petty enough for me not to go, hound Andy and team with, little details like that. But I would suspect that if it could be done, it would be done. Building what they've built via the SDK. I would imagine most of those limitations are because of the SDK. But I just don't know. But at the same time, there's bigger and better things that I'd rather be worked on and improved than just that piece. I mean, that's
That's
a
right.
small piece.
Completely.
Yeah, when you disconnect and you're in a production and you have to get back in there as quickly as possible, all of a sudden it matters a lot, right? But those are, one-off situations. Pete, what you got?
Quick question on the webinar in general. I was running a Zoom meeting about a month ago, and in the middle of the meeting, we lost everything. Zoom just shut down. And come to find out, someone had started, for the client I work for, used the same login, not for that meeting, but for a separate meeting.
Yep.
Is there a way to prevent that from happening? Or
I kind of feel like there is, but I don't off the top of my head. I can't take you right to. I mean, the thing about it is the assumption is that person was there and started the initial webinar for you guys and then left and went someplace else, because if that's not the case, then they're sharing credentials,
no, they're sharing this. For the client I work for, I use her login, but she uses a separate one. Another person used the generic login that I used.
Yeah. Yeah, when there's shared credentials, which, I mean, technically speaking, that's a license issue, a breach of license issue, their terms of licensing. But, when you share credentials, those are the risks you put yourself at. I mean, not you, but those are the risks the organization. It's hard for them to point at you and point blame at you when they gave you a set of credentials that, are shared with others, because now they're here they are, Pete, but the odds are somebody may stump on your meeting.
It all of a sudden happened, and I tried to reactivate the meeting, and it said, meeting's already in progress. And it was a recorded event, so everything came to a screeching stop. No big deal. No one was really upset. We were near the end of the meeting time anyway. But it was just a unique incident to experience and try to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, when it's the client's account and you don't know, kind of what they've done as a practice, before you showed up. It's tough. It is really tough. Other than just laying out, kind of the rules and behaviors and so forth, so that at least they're aware and you've helped them be aware. I mean, you make no assumptions that they've done it, but at the same time, you try to cover your bases.
So another question for that is, if your Zoom meeting, webinar, whatever shuts down and you're recording it, can you reactivate it or reactivate that recording?
Local or cloud record?
Cloud.
Cloud?
Yeah.
I mean, cloud will be there. Cloud will still be up there. I mean, it'll abruptly have an end, but the cloud recording will still be up in the cloud. It's on the account owner's cloud. It won't ever, I mean, it's theirs, it's not yours. So
Yeah.
I mean, if they give you the credentials, you should be able to log in, to zoom.us and look under the recordings. But yeah, it should be there. trying to take a look and see if I can see anything noticeable about the multi-use.
Jeff, does Zoom still allow free accounts to go under business accounts? That you can add a free free account?
Yeah, you can still add a free account under a business account. It just it's still a time limited account.
Right, but it takes away some of the, shall we call it nags? Zoom nags? Or no?
I don't know about that. I think they've been working on harder defining, a free account is exactly this, and it's exactly this no matter where it lives. And that didn't used to be the case, but so I think it's probably safer to assume these days that a free account's limitations are its limitations no matter the case. It used to be that there's certain accounts apparently in the past that would free up the 40-minute limit, and it would up the resolution, and all those things have pretty much gone away, and they've locked them down. So free is free, you get what you get. And a 40-minute time limit now, when it cuts you off, you have to wait like 2 or 10 minutes, I think 10 minutes before you can restart it. And so they've taken away the back to back opportunity as well. Can't say I blame them, but it's one of those things. But that's only if you're a host as well, right? Keep in mind that's only if you're hosting the meeting. And if you're hosting, if you're hosting enough meetings to be that busy, and $16 pretty doggone fair a month, it's not that bad. I mean, I pay more for services that offer way less than what Zoom does, for the amount of money. So
is that the case, Pete? Is that it's like probably a nonprofit? I know I've seen it in the church market where they love sharing accounts.
I can't really talk about it because it's kind of like I work for an employer who's contracted to someone who's contracted to the actual people who run it. But it's an interesting. I'd rather not talk about it. Let's just say that it's a really easy job. I have like 4 cameras. Also, I through a Vazio switcher. I think that's how it's pronounced. PTZ cameras into that, and there's a house sound system for everyone's mic. They have a what do you call it? A smart TV that's got Windows in it as part of the Zoom meeting or webinar, I should say. And they have participants and people who just, or panelists, I should say, and then people who just tune in and watch. So.
Yeah, I'm not seeing quickly on this multi-use. I know there's, when you schedule a meeting, and webinar, you can choose to let or not let or allow people to join from multiple, devices. But I'm not seeing anything immediately on host. So.
But that would have to, Pete would have to be able to access in the admin account, right? To make that change?
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily seeing anything that it's a, I think it'd be more of a behavior control, it's like if if that account is already hosting a meeting, simply don't let another account, fire up and knock the previous one. It's kind of last in wins. is to kill that behavior. I mean, you can't stop people from logging in with the same credentials, but you might be able to change the behavior. And I'm thinking it's here somewhere. I'm just not finding it off the top of my head. So anyways, well, very good. Very good. I'm going to call it a wrap. Another quick 3 hours. It's like 2 to 3 o'clock Central, but always goes by fast, but fun hanging, fun sharing. And if anything comes up, TJ, you got any questions?
I don't, sir, but I do, again, thank you for doing this on Friday and really sharing your knowledge. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, pleasure. Mike, thanks as always, coming in and sharing and partaking, and Pete as well. But and whoever this weird guy is who keeps giving us the thumbs up, right? Oh, we got Bobby off camera. We got John off camera. Thanks for tuning in anyways. But have a good weekend, everybody. We'll wrap it up with a little bit of music and slides and call it a day.
Take care.
Thank you. You all.